Gib Davis, I'm so excited to talk to you because you have such a wonderful service for the community that now I think it's gone for 2 years of listing business networking events in our area. There used to be something called free chicken wings like this many years ago. I know people have mentioned it and we've been missing it. And I want to start just with talking about what you've learned. Now, we've talked offline. You've been a big networker for a long time, but I really want to talk about what you've learned during this process. And before we start, please just introduce yourself and tell them how you make a living.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on, Martin. It's great talking to you as always. So I started a company about 3+ years ago. It's called Genesis Business Advisors. And what I am is a telecommunications broker. So I help businesses with their internet, their phone, their TV, and all the types of services they need. So I broker those deals for them. One of the things that happened when I started this business, I realized, you know what? I've got no clients. I've got no prospects. Where am I going to find them, right? So that's where the networking came into play. I realized that what I need to do is get out and meet people. And I had to figure a way to do that. Where am I going to meet people? How am I going to meet people? Yeah, I could knock door to door and do the cold call thing, right? Which we've all been taught. Oh, you got to go knock on doors. You got to pick up the phone, make calls, send emails. I decided my real focus was going to be getting out and just meeting people, like-minded people. And instead of, and I'll get into this later, of networking and adding clients through addition, I like to call it adding it through multiplication. And I think that's what networking is all about. So I got online and I started to hunt down events in the greater Raleigh region, which is where I'm from, and said, what networking events are out? There's tons of them. As you know, you've done that. It's a lot of work. And what I would do is parse that data down, put it in a spreadsheet, and I would plan out my week. On a Sunday, I would look at what networking events I'm going to go to that week, and I set goals. I said, I'm going to go to 2 events every night, and then I'm going to do some one-on-ones during the day. And so I said, I think I can do about 3, maybe 4 one-on-ones during the day. I started doing that, and then I found out that became very laborious. It was a lot of tasks because what happened was I would go to events, they'd say, how do you find out about it? Well, I went online, I've got the spreadsheet. People are like, can you send me that spreadsheet? That would be great. Sure. So I love helping people, right? So I sent it out. Well, that became a task to me. So what I ended up doing was taking that data, throwing it on a web page so that anybody could go anytime they want and find it. So that's the page that you're referring to. Long answer.
No, it's a great answer and it's a great service. So many people have mentioned how much they value it, but also I've gotten so many people say, you just need to do a show with him. He's a great guy. And I just want to tell you that. So this is overdue. But the thing that I'm passionate about is now that we're getting out of our homes, COVID's occurred and we're starting to meet in person. As the volunteer ambassador of the Greater Triangle area with Alignable, as you know, I've been running an in-person event and seeing people get on Alignable. And for anyone who doesn't know, Alignable's focus is small business helping other small business. So it's not, LinkedIn is more B2B in a large scale. Alignable is a networking and getting to know your neighbor so you can refer them. And what they've learned over the years is the importance of the in-person. That, and I'm excited because as far as I know with Alignable, back in 2017-18, I might be the first unofficial Alignable networking event. Now it's part of the company through the U.S. and Canada. It's a major mission. And what they've learned is if businesses are just online and talking to each other, the trust doesn't build as deeply as if they slow down and get to talk to them and meet face to face. And that's what I've learned for years, that we are still biologically social creatures, and that part of us trusting someone is looking in their eyes, getting to talk about the weather or our families or something other than business. and taking some time to get to know someone, that's where trust is built. And what I've learned from the great Bill Davis is that the fact of it is, if you have a personal relationship with someone, and then there's someone here that might be a tad bit better, but they're technically, but you don't know them, your mind's drawn to the first person more. And that's to me why the in person is so important and why people need to, they need to be safe if they're worried, take your hand sanitizer, watch out for the flu, but the piece of it is trust is built by regularly getting to show up and being seen at an event. So I want to get your perspective because you're now really one of the leaders in letting people know about what's going on great in the Triangle area. And I want to hear your perspective on this.
Totally agree. I think, and that's why I went the road I did. I've been in sales for 30 plus years in telecom. That's why I've got no hair left. But the most effective way to find business leads, I think, is exactly what you're talking about. And your alignable meetings where you have them face to face at Milton's, right? Phenomenal meeting. Really glad you put that together. And I've made some very good and solid contacts there. But what I have found is a few things when you go out and you network, right? Sometimes people, and I like educating people, all right? I love to help them network better. In fact, even on my page, I've got a whole page that talks how to go and network. So where all those posts are, I put that up not too long ago. One of the things I really like to emphasize is when you go out to meet people, it's exactly what you're talking about, Martin. It's building a relationship with them. And you don't do that by walking in and trying to sell the people in that room your services to them. And I've worked with some folks who've done just that, and they immediately go in, like they got their brochures, or like, let me tell you why you need this service. Time out. You go to build connections, and that's where I'm talking about networking, because that's how I started off many years ago when I was networking. I'm like, oh, I'm going to meet people and sell them my service. No, in my impression, that's not effective, and it's really not what people want to hear. They're doing exactly what you're talking about, is building that connection. I need to get to know you better. I need to know you outside of the professional world as well. I need to understand what makes you tick. That's the only way I can help you. And I think that networking is about, when I go into there, I want to make 1 to 2 really solid contacts with somebody that I think I can help find business, and hopefully they can help me find business. If not, that's okay. I'm all right with that, because I feel real good if I help someone find a business lead. It makes me feel great. But going in there to make connections and not selling people, I think, is one of the core things. You also need to walk in and put away all your inhibitions and just say, I'm going to do this. I think for a lot of people, going into a networking event and not knowing anybody there is very intimidating. Frankly, for me, when I walk into an event and I know no one there, which is becoming rare nowadays, but if I don't know the majority of the people there, I'm still mildly intimidated. That's okay, because the only way we grow is getting out of our comfort zone, right? So we walk in there and we say, I'm going to meet somebody that I can provide value to. I don't need to meet everybody in the room. I just need, in my mind, I just need to come out with 1 or 2 really good connections. And then, kind of like you're talking about, then I love to set up one-on-ones with them during the week or in the weeks to come and get to know them better. And again, sometimes I'll do it as a video like we're doing now and do a one-on-one. But I also prefer to say, hey, let's go grab a coffee and really get to know each other, because I think you alluded to it before, where when you can see them, you can hear their tone of voice, you can get a feeling for how they're relating to you. It makes all the difference in the world. And you just can't do that like through emails or even really on a video conference. It's still not the same thing, I think, as being right in person and just getting to know the individual.
The key of it is when someone goes out and they're just doing cold calling. And I don't want to discount the value of cold calling. But cold calling is you're going door to door, and there are businesses where this still works, and more power to them. When someone has the courage to call me on the phone, if they get through, sometimes I'll talk to them and say, "Where are you located?" But that's different than networking. Networking is really going with the mindset of my goal is to help someone and also look out for possible allies where we could help each other. And why this is so important is when your mindset's that, then you aren't looking at people like the next client to pitch to. When you're looking at people like the next client to pitch to, their unconscious intuition is to put their sales shield up.
Absolutely.
And really try to get away from you. So this is a strategy. In fact, wonderful guy came, and he was just handing every warm body a flyer, and people were so generous. They took the flyer and it looked interesting. I said, and it was interesting because I talked to him a little, got to know him, and I said, if you just slow down and start to get to know a few people that might refer you, you might find what they called a golden goose versus the next golden egg. Because the golden egg would be the customer. The golden goose is someone that's going to remember you and refer you. And that's much more powerful in a business long term than just the next golden egg. And that's still harder to do with Zoom meetings. They've proven that those chiclet type or Hollywood squares, if you're old enough to know what it is fatiguing for human beings, that we aren't really organically developed for that very well. That's why, like you said, if you need to at least do a one-on-one, kind of like we're doing in this conversation, at least it slows down the overwhelm and take the time to show up. I'll just say at the Alignable, there's an event listing. And now we have an app. I don't know if you know, they've now got an app so you can check in when you're there. So then after you go to the event, go back to Alignable and you can connect to them. You can find them and see them. So they've worked hard to make the whole platform for follow-on. This is the real gold and what really occurs. There's another big payoff as someone who's been self-employed since 95 is being self-employed is very isolating. And I've coached so many people moving from corporate jobs and others that I'll say, yes, I know you have a nice home office, but you sound like you're moving towards depression. And I'm not a therapist, but I know the signs. You're isolating too much. We're human. I want you to get up in the morning and go to a coffee shop. That's another benefit of these social events is it disrupts the natural isolation that many, even introverts, will experience as well. Then you talked about going in and being a little anxious. One of the tips that I give is when you go in and you feel anxious, look for someone who's sitting alone or standing alone. They're probably the same thing, and go over and say, hey, I just saw you here. What are you involved in? I mean, very few people don't like talking about themselves. It's such a great opening pitch. And that's a great way to start. Get out of the mode, it's about me, and go, who could I maybe help? Or what could I learn today? And go over, let them give them your pitch. Okay, that's interesting. How do you do that? That's fantastic. And then if they never talk about you, it's time to go to the bathroom or get your pizza or something else and move on. But this is a skill where I believe organically we're hardwired for picking up more data than we get just through image or text or phone. And this is where you can develop that skill. If it's not natural, it's a good starting point. Now, at many of the ones you go to, there's often hosts. At mine, we have key hosts that do their best to look out. They don't always find them, but the goal is if you see someone new, talk to them and introduce them to someone. And I like to have ours a little bit smaller so it's easy to do that, And so some have those, but if they don't, look around. Somebody in the group, you can see they're sitting alone. They're looking at their phone and they're feeling awkward. go break the ice and talk to them.
Absolutely, because everybody, I mean, to some degree, everybody's got a little angst when they're in there. They're a little nervous. Nobody likes to stand alone in the room. So yeah, seek them out. And I've done it where I've been talking to two or three people in a meeting, and I'll see someone stand over the corner, and I'll say, "Hang on a second," and just walk over and say, "Hey, come join us." And I'll say, "What's your name?" "Oh, I'm Bob." "Okay, Bob. Hey, this is Jim. This is Sally." Introduce them, get them engaged. It's all about that engagement and just caring about people, just generally loving on them, helping them feel more comfortable. As I always tell people, when you walk in, smile. Make
Yeah.
sure you're smiling. That makes all the difference in the world because that makes people more comfortable. If you come in all serious and grumpy faced, yeah, when you step out of the room, have a readjustment and come back in with a big smile. I think that's super important. And be respectful of people's time is something I like to tell people too, because you don't want to dominate somebody, right, in one of these networking events, grab all their time, and they never get a chance to meet anybody else. The way I always look at this is just a starting point. Again, when many years ago when I was networking and I was going to try to find prospects,
Yeah.
at these events, which again, that's the addition method, or as you say, the egg, finding the golden egg. No, to me, that's addition. The multiplication is exactly what you're saying, the goose. You want the goose. So you want to find that individual that can help you, and you, but more importantly, you can help them. And I would go to these events, and I was like, oh, I went to all these events. I know all these people. I've seen them.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm done with that. I got to go somewhere else. No, I've learned since then. I want to keep going back to the events where I know people. I want to see you 3 or 4 times. Because otherwise, how am I going to get to really know you, Martin? How am I going to get to know who you are? Every time I talk to somebody, I've seen them in another event, we carry on the conversation,
Yeah.
and I pick up a few more tidbits, and I'm always asking them, how can I help you? Because we're all busy in a day, right? And I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I will forget. But most of the time now, what I'll do is I'll go home at night. I'll take down some notes, usually try to send them a thank you follow up either that night or the next day. Hey, it was great to meet you. And if I can, I'm trying to think of a good lead or two for them. So I will pick my brain and try to find some and say, hey, by the way, I think I've got a good lead for you. Is it okay if I do an email warm intro? That's huge, right? If I introduce you to somebody that's a warm intro, hey, I understand you are looking for, X, boom, make the connection. That makes all the difference in the world for someone.
Yeah, a sign of someone not understanding this is the statement, I came once and it looks like the same people again.
Yeah.
Then, no, you need to just be knocking on doors, cold calling. I mean, you're not using your time well in this environment. Now, again, it doesn't mean knocking on doors or cold calling is bad. It's just that's where you should be putting your energy, because this event is about slowing down and getting to know some people and finding out about them. I don't know that I told you, but I used to have the leading social selling podcast show in the world with Greg Heyer, and tragically he passed away in his sleep at 39. And it's just and he held all the keys for all the data. The joke was, you're younger than me, you have all the tech stuff. I'll probably go first, and this happened. And but we got to meet people all over the world. I just interviewed David Amerlin, that was part of one of our early shows, and it was YouTube podcasting. But he had a version of linking the triangle. Now there's a great gal that's doing it, but he had a networking thing. So we got to work and introduce lots of people on it and educate them on it. And it's amazing that if you haven't seen someone and you catch up a month later, there's always something that's changed. And what we learned in our process of social selling is that a lot of the best leads came from the weaker connections, the from someone you didn't expect. And that's what we learned. So this idea of you're not my lead is really a destructive and non-productive way to work, because so many professionals, when we studied, what happens is you want to go for your goal of contacts, but you want to have some soft vision here and also look around and be open to other ideas, because so many professionals, when we ask, where was your last lead from? They go, someone I never expected knew somebody that's in a such and such position. So that's an important thing in sales, to understand that some of your best leads come from a connection you don't expect.
Absolutely true. It's funny because as I'm all about let's go to these networking
Yeah.
groups and putting the page out there, and so no one knows what's available better than me. Um, Last quarter, I think I went to one or two events. It just got so busy. And I always told myself, I've been in sales forever, don't ever, you know, forget your pipeline, to build your pipeline because you're so busy closing deals and closing sales. Well, unfortunately, I got into that rut last quarter, and it happens. And I just couldn't find the time, literally, to get out at night and see people. And one of my goals for 2024 was I am getting back heavy into networking. I'm going to find a way to make it work somehow. Because my big fear is if that pipeline starts to retract, then I'm in trouble. You feel great when you're installing customers and the money's starting to come in and you're excited about that. But if you're not constantly out there, well, anyway, I go out and I've already hit four events I think so far this month. And we're a couple of weeks in now. So I'm back on my two a week. And the first event I went to, there were two people I connected with beautifully, and neither one I had met before. I reconnected with a couple other individuals, but I was talking. One of them was like, "Oh, I've got a lead for you right here." I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And the funniest thing was about it that night. Ironically, there was just a lot going on, and I'm like, I'm too busy. I really don't have the time. I got to get this proposal out tonight. I've got to send a couple of emails out, blah, blah, blah. I just don't know. And I started talking myself out of going to that event. And what I have learned is every single time, Martin, without exception, when I was hesitant to go to an event, but I forced myself to go anyway, every single time I have gotten something positive out of that event. So now when yeah, it's like I'll make that one or two good connections because that's what I'm going for. I'm not necessarily going for a lead. I'm just going to make a good connection. And if I can make a solid, really, you know what I mean, when you connect with somebody, you just click, and it's like, yeah, I can help this person. Um, every single time it's happened, and I was like, so it reminds me every time, like, yeah, I don't think I want to go tonight. Darn it! My advice to people is that is all the more reason to go because there's probably something there. There's a goose out there that you're going to miss if you
Yeah.
don't go out and do it.
Yeah, no, and it's so exciting too when someone's a regular at the Alignable, and I go, "Oh, John can help you right over here." Introduce them together, and they're moving, and that's part of the essence of it, is knowing that it's a muscle that takes some time to develop, that it's not
Yes.
necessarily comfortable for a lot of people. It's
No.
not normally comfortable for human beings to interact with strangers. We tend to group with that which looks familiar. So
Yes.
you're not alone in this, but that's where the payoff is. And just remember, your competition is facing the same discomfort. So if you're actually overcoming it, you have a competitive advantage over them.
Amen. And I'm amazed. And when just I look at my competitors, very few of them network. Again, a lot of companies are wired to say, knock on doors, pick up the phone, and send out emails. A lot of corporate America, they're not into the whole networking scene. They just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you've seen examples, but I've come from corporate America, and they'll frown upon it. In many cases, like no, this is what you got to do because it's worked forever. Sometimes you got to get out of that "it worked forever" mentality. What Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results is the definition of insanity, right? And sometimes we do that, and we don't even realize we are. You gotta break that comfort zone. Do something different. I encourage people all the time. Try it. Try to network because I think the vast majority of businesses still don't really get out and do networking.
Yeah, no, I understand. And when you're self employed, it's there's another problem that if you've worked for sales for a professional organization, what happens is you're trained to just get the next golden egg.
Yes.
Just get the, and that's the kiss of death of being self-employed, because
It
new
is.
customer acquisition's always the most expensive. So
Yes.
if you have to get out of, wait a second, I need to also court my existing customers. So I'll tell people, why don't you invite a customer to the Alignable networking event? Bring him up. I've got a new neighbor. He's a data scientist at a bank, programmer. I'm inviting him to the next event. Say, look, this is how it works, and get out and meet some people. You work from home, and he's open to it. You never know who he might know or what connection might occur. So,
Absolutely. And you touched on something really good because so one of the things I want, because of my business, the nature of my business, it's longevity. Because the way I get compensated is I get a little piece of the client's bill every month, basically, right? So I don't get a one-time comp and I'm done. So as I always tell clients, my objective is make sure you not only stay alive, but you succeed and grow. It's a win-win for both of us. So I'm always trying to find ways to help my customers beyond the norm. And one of the things I love to do is mention networking to them. And I'll show them the networking page and say, why don't you come with me? Just like
yeah,
you're talking about. Come with me. I'll introduce you to some new potential clients, possibly, or at least some connections that would be good for you. And they get all excited, like, I never thought about it. And I'm amazed the vast majority of them say, well, I don't really network. I'm too busy at night. Excuse, right? Let's put the excuses aside, and I get it. I mean, one of my clients I know, he goes nonstop. He's got kids. He really doesn't
sure.
have time at night. And for his business, he's actually a lot of times working at night. So there are reasons. I'm not, please understand, I'm not condemning anybody for not having the time. But if you can make the time, I'll tell you, the rewards are huge.
That's the biggest thing, because nobody's looking for your next commercial posted online. They're really not. They're
Yeah.
just not. I mean, they're like, there's another ad. Another ad. Oh, please stop. As you know, I've also written a few books on social media, and of course, my latest two, one on relationship marketing and the other on AI, and it's really important to understand that as data becomes more and more overwhelming, our unconscious call for honest human connection is going to go up. In fact, I just mentioned on an interview earlier today, when I grew up, there was a book called Future Shock. It's an old book, but he brought up the fact that as technology goes up, the need for human connection, authentic connection, will go up as well. And I see that just as true today as others. That's why you see people that are like influencers. What I guarantee is when you see an influencer that's only about themselves, just give them so many months and they'll be talking about getting therapy or needing help. Why? Because it's only about them.
Mm.
They've they're in their own echo chamber. They're isolated. Life is going to become more meaningless to you. It's
Yeah.
just the nature. And I'm just old enough that I did enough of that to learn from it. I'm not special. I just learn from, mistakes, that
Yeah.
I need a human interaction at certain levels. And I've learned, someone who might view them as an introvert, they also need a certain level, but they also need their time away as well. So it's a human condition, and this is an important asset. Put on the counter. And I love what you said. It's just like the one you felt you weren't going to go to was the biggest payoff. Well, that's right out of the rules of mastery. You go to do the training, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because that's often where the breakthroughs occur. So I think those are two important points on it. That's why I'm big on, we have ours, like the Alignable ones, on the last Wednesday of every month at 11 o'clock. Here's where it is, here's what's going on, and here's the process. And it's just such a joy to see people who are regular really getting business.
Yeah, it's funny because we're all really comfortable with the concept of the World Wide Web, right? And how we're all connected with computers. And I think sometimes we forget the World Wide Web is our networking web too, and we're all connected as humans, not as computers per se. And sometimes, like you said, we step away and we get so, right. My industry is technology, right? So I see it more than anybody, but we forget about the human aspect of that. These are merely tools that we use to interact, whether it be what we're using now, a video conference. But if you can get face to face with another human and they have connections and they have connections, there's your World Wide Web. And that's what it's all about. It's that web of connections. It may be 2 or 3 layers away that all of a sudden, boom, this lead pops up. And I've had that happen where I was talking to somebody and they said, I've got a friend whose cousin is going to be opening a business. Why don't I reach out to them? Because they probably need your service. So they call the friend reaches out to cousin. Cousin says, absolutely. They connect me and boom, there it is. And it's just talking to people. The other thing I found that's amazing to me, and this just happened the other day at a networking event, I was talking to someone for 5 minutes, and I was mostly asking them about their business and talking, and then they started asking me about my business, and I told them about my business. So we can, because you have to know the other person's business so you can know what leads to look for. And I think one of the biggest questions is, how can I help you? What is a good connection for you, right? What is a good lead for you? And those are really almost 2 different questions, right? The what is a good lead is what's the egg? Where's the golden egg? The connection is the goose. So you do want to look for both. Maybe they'll find an egg for you. Maybe they're going to find a goose for you. What's a good connection? But I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking. I was telling him all about it, and then I asked another question, and we started talking about him again and his business. And all of a sudden, he stopped. And he went, wait a minute, I know somebody that's opening a business. Because they were actually talking about their business and something they were doing for this client who's opening a business. He goes, oh, yeah, let me hook you up with this individual. But it didn't just, it's not that you walk in and tell me. People have to talk and they got to get comfortable. They got to start thinking, and all of a sudden, these eggs start dropping from the goose.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's really exciting, and I've always enjoyed it, and I'm excited I'm back doing it as well. And I thought we would cover a few of the mistakes we've done or learned from. I thought that might be a nice section yet. I mean, I think we both hit on the one going in where you're just trying to find someone to give your pitch to really radiates unconscious, stay away from me. you know,
It does.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like a comedian one time said, when someone just hands you a card, what they're really saying is, would you throw this away from me? I think that was Mitch Hedrum or something, but I thought that's one of them, and the other one I'll think of right away is just coming in with someone else and not getting to know other people.
Yeah.
You came in with someone and you don't make an effort to at least find out, oh, there's someone I know, I'll just connect to them. So
Yeah.
and now that can be good because it's like catching up. I mean, we have some real good regulars on the Alignable, and I want to know what they've done the last month.
Sure.
You know, but also making that little effort to do it. So, any others you see as major mistakes that happen in this field?
Well, you touched on some of the key ones. I think one of the major mistakes too is let's use the old adage, right? You have one mouth and 2 ears. We've all heard that one. So listen twice as much as you speak. I think questioning is important. The person that does the vomiting of all the information about their business, it makes you want to vomit. So, my advice always to people is don't just go in there and show up and throw up. Don't, no, please listen, ask questions, but genuinely ask those questions. Don't do it just so, okay, I asked my questions. No, ask me. Don't have that internal mission of it's all about me. Make it all about the person you're talking to. Ask those questions, because I've done that. I've walked in and let me tell you all about who I am. Yeah, huge mistake. And then I wasn't listening to what they had to say. So I think we've all done that where we get too excited and we want to tell our story, but we forget to listen. when the other
Yeah,
person.
yeah. That's why I actually in my relationship marketing, I do not teach people to build an elevator pitch. I
Yeah,
actually, you know exactly who your right client is, know what the unique value you offer is. That's the core. You
yeah,
know, who do I give the highest return on investment to? I mean, if I were saying, "Hey, I have a business of me and my wife here, and we want to get better phones." I mean, you might refer me to something else. That's not where your strong suit. It's just like my friend, a friend that does merchant service. Often he'll say, "Look, stay with Square until you get to this level of making money. Then I
yeah,
can actually help you
yeah,
save some." You know,
yeah,
and so that's an important piece, is really know those fundamentals are more important than you've got a spiel to spit on someone. And that's why now I don't mind people building it as a tool to focus themselves in the background, to understand more what they are, to get comfortable talking about their business. Very key thing to get, that you're comfortable
yeah.
talking about what you do and what's of value. But don't spew on them. So I think we hit some of the highlights of those as well. I'd like to talk about my new book with you
Please
because you
do.
were so generous. I remember I reached out. I said, "Look, I want to get you a copy. I want you to read it. And I hope you heard, I just wanted your honest input. If you don't like it, it's fine." And you were so, there we are. That's it. And you were so wonderfully generous. But, that's what I care about. I want to know, like it, don't like it. I just want real understanding, because Pat and I are really committed that this can map onto everything. And one of the things I tell in my own story is, when I was in IBM, I was the top a person for solving problems with customers in the technical field. I was called a customer engineer in fixing computers and everything else. Send me in if they're upset. They always wanted me to get in sales, and I'd say, "I don't lie and I don't play golf." Okay, so you can see real clearly what my internal representation of sales was at that
Yeah,
time, which is really funny, because all through my life I've been really good at ethical sales and not realized it. So I had to really define ethical sales, and then I really wanted to find tools that would help people that are so ethical the customer could know all the techniques you're using and they'd be okay with it.
yeah.
And that's what drew me to patent this book, is because you can in my view, I'll take this when I meet a prospect client, or I want you
Yeah.
to know what's going on here, and I want you to know how I work, and I recommend you do the same. And that's, to me, what was so exciting that we got accomplished.
Transparency, and I've used that in all my sales techniques. I'm very transparent with my prospects, my clients, my friends. They all know that, probably to a fault. But that's just who I am. Ethics is huge to me. Um, and I think that's why a lot of your beliefs in selling are very similar. Your core beliefs are similar to mine. It's being ethical. It's being transparent. It's just being honest with people. And the one thing I learned early in my career is not everybody's going to be a good fit for what you
No,
have. And
no,
and
it's
so
okay.
one of my techniques is I've always walked into clients, and I did this with one client that was really tough to break. And I gave him a cold call, and I said, "Hi, Mr. Smith. I'm calling you. I work at such and such a company, and I'm calling you to find out why we shouldn't do business together."
Right.
And I sat and waited, and he thought for a minute, and he's like, "I think you said that wrong." And I said, "No, I mean exactly what I said. I wanted to ask you some questions, if you have some time, about your business. I think from the research I've done on your company that I might be able to help you in certain areas in your business, but I won't know that till I ask a few questions. My time is really valuable.
Right.
And you, as a CFO, your time is extremely valuable as well. So what I'd rather do, instead of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, which most sales reps will do, trying to find out, get them to say yes, get them to say yes. I'm trying to get you to say no, because then I'm going to find out quicker if we should be a good fit or not. So the questions I'm going to ask, I'm looking for a no. And then we
Right.
can both hang up and say, this is probably not going to be a good fit, but I appreciate your time. If I get to the end of my 4 minutes that I'm going to need now, and I can't find a no, I think it's going to make sense for us to have a meeting. And the guy's like, that is the most honest and refreshing approach I've ever had. You absolutely have my time right now. Go.
Cool.
And again, it's about being transparent. And I think the same thing when we go into a networking event, you got to be open and be transparent. And don't ever try to smell anybody. Right?
Yeah.
Be honest with them. Let them know what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're trying to accomplish the same things.
Yeah. That's a fun story. I love those stories. We had so many, Greg and I, working together, connecting with businesses. But I think this has been just a fantastic time together. And I'd like to wrap it up with you. Anything you recommend people do?
Follow-up is crucial. So many people, and I've made that mistake. You asked about mistakes I've made.
Yeah.
The other mistake I don't point out is not following up with
Yeah.
people. Again, you can't build a relationship if you don't follow up with them. If you
Right.
meet them once, talk to them for 10 minutes at a meeting, come on, really? You think you're going to be able to build a relationship and build their trust and have them understand you and believe in you? Not so much. The thing I would like to end with is you ask is just my recommendation after everything that we've said is sit down, do it on a Saturday or Sunday or whenever is good for you, quiet time, and plan out your week. And my biggest recommendation is sit there and if it's the link that I have, that's fine. If it's another means, that's fine. But really make a concerted effort to look and see what events can I attend this week. And then once I attend those events, make those follow-up meetings with those individuals, that, as they call them, the one-on-ones.
Mm-hmm.
Do it intentionally, because if you don't, and I've made the mistake, the week will pass by and all of a sudden we haven't been to a single event. I've done
Right.
it too many times. So intentionally plan out your week. I have a calendar. I go through, I look at the events. I go, oop, I can attend this one, and this one, and this one. And then I put it in my calendar for that week. And then I commit to going to it. And I make a promise to myself, I will go to that.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the links and the link of your great business. I've heard great things about your service and what you do. You really do screen your clients to make sure you're going to make them more money and solve their problem, or you're going to network them on to another person. And that's what I've heard from people that do direct business with you. So highly recommend that. I'll put it in as well. This was just a delightful time together, way overdue. And of course, anything I can do to help, we're connected online, and appreciate what you're doing to help the small business community and in the greater Triangle area.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And anything I can do for you, just reach out. I'm here for you, my friend.
Sounds good. Take good care. That was great.
Thanks for your time. You too.